What would happen if Tether went away? Is it something where now Tether has become almost, like it's too big to fail?
I believe in the hyper Bitcoinization. So if the world will go towards, more and more adoption of Bitcoin, I think it's fine for Tether to decrease and to potentially, so Tether USDT to decrease and go away. We are not that the type of guys and saying, well, we have to do everything that we can to make sure that Tether will be used from here to the next 2,000 years. That doesn't make any sense for us, right? So if the world doesn't need any more stablecoin technology, that's fine. It means that the world is evolving, the world is going towards other directions.
All right, guys, bang, bang. Paolo, I thought a great place for us to start this conversation is the rise of stablecoins. Obviously, they used to be very small, almost non-existent. Now we have about $125 billion market cap, of which Tether is the largest stablecoin. Can you talk about the last couple of years and from your perspective, how important stablecoins popularity in crypto has been?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, the stablecoins had a little bit of a history. Tether was founded 9 years ago, actually the 6th of October. Tether would had his 9th birthday, and in the last few years though, the stablecoins changed from being a product basically designed at the beginning for cryptocurrency traders, for helping moving fiat across different exchanges to help arbitrageurs and so on and so forth. But with COVID, with the increased devaluation of national currencies, especially in emerging markets, I'm thinking about Turkey, I'm thinking about Argentina, Venezuela, and so on. Stable coins more and more have demonstrated to be an asset that considered a lifeline for communities living in developing countries. And the fact that the economy suffered a big hit during the pandemic, the fact that inflation is going through the roof more and more, and the crypto markets in general have been suffering as well as the in general financial markets. People in this moment want trying to find safety, trying to find stability in their life. This is a period in which speculation is not definitely the first thought of people, right? So they want something that is predictable, something that they wake up in the morning, they know that they have pretty much the same purchasing value or power than the day before, the week before. If you think about the Turkish lira devaluated around 80% in the last 18 months compared to the US dollar. And so if you are a Turkish person, probably you would prefer to keep your funds in USDT, in Tether, USDT, rather than in Turkish liras. And so it has been an interesting shift. Also is, I would say, when Tether created USDT, we could not think to all these use cases. Of course, the growth has been immense, and we are every day when I wake up, I'm still surprised about the growth of this space of this industry. Yet it's I think I like what the real true purpose of stable coins. I like the fact that they are now used by hundreds of millions of people around the world to find stability, to find, to be used as a way to transfer wealth, to store wealth, and so on.
And when you think about people in whether it's Turkey or other areas where there's hyperinflation or a significant devaluation, I think the story for a long time had been Bitcoin is the solution, right? People are going to go and they're going to buy Bitcoin. We see that happening to some degree. There are definitely people in these countries that buy Bitcoin. But it seems like also a lot of people are buying stable coins as well. And the reason why I kind of position it as, if you're in a dire financial position, right, your economy is kind of wobbling, your currency is being devalued. If you have an internet connection, you now have choice. You can choose from a couple of different currencies. And it does seem like people are choosing stable coins and Bitcoin. Does your expectation it will continue to be stablecoins in Bitcoin, or do you think that stablecoins serve like a really interesting kind of solution for these individuals where maybe Bitcoin isn't going to be used for medium of exchange and only for store of value? Or how do you think of these two assets and their relationship to each other?
Well, I think we cannot discount the fact that stable coins are, well, the majority of the stable coins and these 125 billion are actually representing US dollar stable coins, right? So if you think, but there are euro-based stable coins. Tether has Euro Tether that was launched in 2018, 2019. And the reality is that I think the market cap is ridiculous compared to USDT. The reason is that everyone wants the dollar in this world. So dollar is the most established asset and is the most, everyone knows it, right? So if you talk to all the generations from the youngest to the oldest, they know dollar, they know gold. Actually, the second biggest stablecoin that Tether has created is XLT, is a stablecoin that is fully backed by gold. But that tells you that people, are the euro has been there since the last 20, 30 years. The dollar has much longer life. Gold has 5,000 years of history, and so people tend to go to things that they know that they are solid, that have been in their families or understood by their families for generations. And so, with the dollar has still that sort of mark of stability, and among all the inflation, all the devaluation of the different national currencies, in the end, the dollar is the safest one among all of them, right? So the dollar is the biggest economy in the world, and so provides more assurance to people that need to choose where to put their savings. Bitcoin is the newest of all the currencies, and we are seeing adoption, right? I'm personally a Bitcoiner, and every time I talk about Tether, I also try to talk about Bitcoin, because I think one of the roles of stablecoins is never forget their role as for sure innovators, but also their role as companies that should foster financial freedom. And Bitcoin is the ultimate financial freedom, right? So, but it just takes more time for people to understand it. Younger generations are more prepared to this discussion, to understand intrinsic value, to understand the fact that the fact that there are computers governing Bitcoin is not a scary thing. Is actually a positive thing, as I think that since there is no mother nature, that as with gold you have mother nature, you have the nature that you have a fixed amount of or limited supply of gold in the soil, and that is what people were used to and are used to when they think to a scarce asset. The fact that computers are basically running Bitcoin shouldn't be scary, but is actually kind of scary or kind of weird for many still. And I think we as an industry should do a better job, or should keep doing or improving the job that we are doing in explaining and holding people towards Bitcoin.
Now, when we think inside of the stablecoin market, obviously dollars on a blockchain are the most popular, right, as you mentioned. But there are now multiple companies or organizations who have created dollar-backed stablecoins. And so the two most popular being Tether and USDC, but there's a plethora of others that have come into the market, and each one has varying degrees of success. When you look at the market, is it a winner take all, a winner take most? Do you think it's actually important to have multiple stablecoin, dollar-backed stablecoin winners? Like, how do you look at almost competition for the dollar-backed stablecoin itself?
Yeah, I think, look, I like to think the stablecoin as an industry. I don't think an industry can exist with only one player. And you can see how much the stablecoins are subject of discussion among regulators in different parts of the world. If the stablecoin industry would be made by a single player, would it not be an industry, and probably, every regulator would have, reason to shut it down in a way, right? Because, if there is only one company that can do it, is could be a weird thing, right? So you want to have diversity, you want to have like the ability of people to choose, to look at the options, to look at the historical track record, and all these type of things. I think in being in many, we are giving and providing a good use case and good diverse case to regulators to make them understand that this is a growing technology. Again, if there was one single company, it wouldn't, would be feeling weird, right? So why no one else is doing the very same thing? And monopoly is never good, I think. What I also think is that, for example, Tether USDTA is not onboarding US customers. So there are, I heard, I think it was on news, PayPal is launching his US dollar or has launched his US dollar stablecoin starting from the US. You can argue Circle is focusing or that is one of their main focuses. So the world is a big place. I think Tether has an eye towards emerging markets and developing countries. So I like the fact that diverse geographically. I think diverse in the way they are run, in the philosophy that is behind the scenes, and so on. So actually, it's a good thing.
Now, when you think about Tether and kind of the adoption that it has received, one of the big questions has always been around Treasury management and then also regulation. And sometimes those two things are related. Other times those two things are completely separate, right? If you were to almost think of it as a business, right, you've got some people who are dedicated to doing Treasury management, do it as well as possible. And then you've got other people who are worried about regulation and being compliant and stuff like that. And so how do you all think about Treasury management maybe as just like part of the internal business and what you guys do? And then how does that relate into any of the regulatory either inquiries or oversight that you all are subjected to?
That's a great question, right? So I'm in the face of Tether for quite now a few years, and I think one of the best things that happened in the last 2 years is trial by fire, right? It's easy to say, well, what's going on behind the scenes, and are you doing this, are you doing that, right? So, and of course I go on and I go on shows and explain, yes, we are doing these type of things, we are extremely serious in risk management, we have a team, we have extremely professional people that are day and night are monitoring the markets, are trying to understand macroeconomics. They are among the best people that someone could aim for their company when it comes to treasury management and risk management. I mean, I feel so lucky to work with this team. Yet there is an interesting aspect that talking about 2022 and 2023. Starting with Terra Luna, also Tether became under attack. Classic FUD campaigns. And Tether proved in May 2022 it was able to redeem $7 billion in 48 hours, $20+ billion in 20 days. A good testament of the solidity of Tether and solidity of banks, right? When we think that $7 billion were 10% of the reserves and $20 billion were 25% of the reserves. I mean, it's then you start asking or looking around at the banks that and see and ask yourself, would the banks be able to survive to that type of scenario? The answer is no, right? In 2008, there was a bank called Washington Mutual, went bankrupt for 10% of their redemption of their reserves. In 2023, we had Silicon Valley Bank, we had Silicon Valley Bank, Signature, Silvergate. All were shut down for improper management or too much risk in their portfolio, from my understanding. And it's interesting that one of our main competitors actually had a lot of cash, uninsured cash on one of those banks. And so what we did at Tether, we always thought that the banks as partners for sure for Tether, because Tether is a USDT is a centralized stablecoin, so it means that it's using it's using blockchains as a transport layer, but the issuer is centralized. And so hence, as a centralized stablecoin has to use the banking system. But using the banking system doesn't mean trusting blindly the banking system. It means that the most important aspect of our life at Tether is protecting the portfolio. And when you want to protect the portfolio, I mean, the obvious question is, why a stablecoin doesn't put, $82 billion in cash in the bank? Right, you guys should have $82 billion in cash in the bank. Well, there is no bank that allows you to do that. This cash would stay in the balance sheet of the bank. And the most important thing is that in the case of a bankruptcy, this cash would be dragged into the bankruptcy proceeding. Instead, if you use USD bills, if you use that are basically securities, if you use reverse repos and so on, if there is any issue with the bank, these assets are returned to the owner. And so they would be, in our case, returned to Tether, even in the worst case scenario. So, and that I think, that is I think some of our competitors found this the hard way, right? They kept uninsured cash in the bank. It ended up in the balance sheet of the bank. And when the bank blew up, they needed the FDIC to save the bank for the first time in history. They have to save the bank and provide all the capital to fill the hole. Otherwise, there would be a massive issue on such stablecoins. And so these are the things that, believe it or not, our team is insanely focused on. And we were not found in that mistake. We were, I would say, being Italians, we smell problems like 1 mile away, probably, but really, I'm really proud of the work that we have been doing there in this extremely turbulent period.
Now, FDIC insurance is really interesting in this scenario because basically what you're highlighting is there's FDIC insurance up to the $250,000 limit. And so obviously that gives the average consumer some degree of peace of mind. FDIC insurance obviously wouldn't save a business or an individual with more than that unless they step in with extreme measures as they did. And so one of the questions that people always ask me is, will Tether get FDIC insurance? And what you're really highlighting here is that FDIC insurance doesn't really mean anything for Tether because there's so much money that either you would have to put the money cash in a bank. You may have too much for one single bank to do that. And so actually the thing that guarantees or at least increases the probability of people getting the money back, right? The kind of the reserves is the T-bills are a much better solution for that than having to rely on FDIC insurance. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, I mean, the fact that FDIC decided to save Silicon Valley Bank was maybe one in a lifetime event, right? So till I think the issue happened on a Thursday, and until Sunday, no one knew if that would happen. I mean, it never happened. So it could have happened or it could not. So for a stablecoin relying on insurance on the bank balance sheet is not an option. The solution for a stablecoin issuer is to use short-term U.S. Treasury bills and also products like solutions like overnight reverse repos, fully collateralized in USD bills, so that you need to redeem $10 billion overnight. You have the liquidity, no problems, right? So that is the type of information, that is the type of knowledge that we accrued over time and makes myself, our team confident. And, we proved we were really tried by fire in being subject to FUD, redemption. I think we processed one single redemption was $700 million, one single redemption. So I think it speaks highly about our procedures.
So one of the big pieces here is when you're putting the money into T-bills, even if they're short-term T-bills, you can generate a lot of revenue. And in Q1, Tether reported, I think it was like almost $1.5 billion of net profit. In Q2, I think the number ended up being somewhere around $850 million. And so let's put it at, $2 to $2.5 billion of profit in the first half of this year. Is that something that you think is just solely tied to interest rates, and we're in a high interest rate environment, so that's good for Tether, and when those rates come down, we should expect profit to come down? Or are there other things that you all can do from a treasury management standpoint that, one, continue to secure the treasury reserves, but also two, can help to drive revenue and profit for the business, even if rates were to come down in the future?
Well, first of all, Tether is actually, everyone knows Tether for the stablecoin USDT, right? So, but the reality of things is that Tether is expanding quickly in different areas. The role of Tether is to ensure that the stablecoin is secure. It has is in this moment, we have the market cap of Tether is $83 billion, and the Tether has more than $3.3 billion in additional reserves accrued in the last few quarters. And this quarter will be a good quarter again, and so on and so forth, right? As you said, we are living in a high interest rate period. And so we expect that to continue a little bit, but not forever, right? Also means that if the high interest rate period would continue for a long time, that would be not good for the global economy, right? You would expect eventually to calm down a little bit. So the stablecoin, I think the profitability of the stablecoin will go down. I must say that Tether maintain always a lean team for even when interest rates were were really low, or at some point, I think Tether was making around 15 basis points on to 20 basis points on average on its portfolio. Yet Tether was profitable. One of the other things that Tether has been doing compared to the other stable coins, and that is actually one of the things that regulators are interested in and are happy with, is the fact that Tether has 10 basis points issuance and redemption fees allow Tether to remain profitable, Tether USDT to remain profitable only in doing low interest rate periods. And so Tether is this stablecoin behemoth. The profitability goes up and down based on interest rates. The good thing is that with the capital that we are accruing, the vast majority is capped at the to farther back the stablecoin. Right now, it's around 104%. So 4% of over collateralization. And but with part of the profits, Tether is expanding different business lines. We started working in energy production and Bitcoin mining. We launched in partnership with Hole Punch, and communication, peer-to-peer communication platform that developed Keep as a peer-to-peer video conferencing and video call and audio and chat tool. We are really excited about that. A new version of Keep mobile will come in next 2-3 weeks. Will be insanely better. Will be much more scalable, super secure still, and so on. So. We are working on other products. And so I think Tether as a company will grow its profitability over time. The stablecoin part will be maybe in certain periods extremely profitable, in other periods less profitable, but it's okay, right? So when we launched Tether, we couldn't believe this fast growth anyway.
Yeah. Is it something where you would ever consider taking the company public or kind of going a more traditional path, given, I'm assuming investors knock on the door all the time when you are reporting $2 billion worth of profits in the first half of a year? That's something where, whether they're private investors or public investors, they want to get exposure to profits of that size. How have you thought about the maturation of Tether, kind of the holding company, if you will, as a business, and what are the plans there?
So we we discussed a few times about the opportunity. I mean, we are not shutting the door to potentially bring in Tether public, but I must say that I'm sorry about that, but I'm always going back to my Italian roots and Giancarlo, my business partner, roots. We come from Italy, right? And there is a huge company called Ferrero, the one that makes Nutella. That is a private company. I mean, the business is thriving. They are doing great. And they are not interested to bring the company public. I think if you love what you're doing, if you are excited, if you have long-term plans, I mean, if you are an investor of the company, but you really are married to that vision, I think it's kind of hard to bring it public. That's at least our feeling this moment.
Yeah, that makes sense. As part of the reserves, another question that I get is obviously having the T-bills and kind of what I'll consider other traditional safe capital allocation that any large institution would pursue makes sense. But what about putting things like Bitcoin as part of the Treasury reserves? And have you guys done that? Is that something that you think is beneficial or potentially kind of violates the Treasury management strategy that you guys have in place right now?
A great question. It's information that is publicly available. Tether in its portfolio has around 1.5 billion in Bitcoin. Given that Tether has more than 3.3 billion in excess equity, that is, company profits non-distributed. Even if Bitcoin would go to zero, Tether would still have more money than all the total issued tokens. Also, Tether holds gold as part of its reserves. We think that the world is extremely unpredictable, and Tether users should be protected from edge cases. What we are looking at is that European banks, but I was reading that also probably in the US, is even the banks are allowed to put up to 5% of the capital in Bitcoin. In the bank balance sheet in Bitcoin. So we have our ratio is around 1.5% on the Bitcoin side. And again, it's smaller than our company excess equity. But yeah, we are thinking about, with really small portions of the portfolio, we are thinking about, some small diversification to give a little bit of counterbalance to the enormous exposure that we have with USD bills. We made a calculation right now. I think with give or take last numbers is around 72.5 billion in USD bills. That would put Tether to be the 20. If Tether was a country, it would put Tether to be the 22nd country in the world for how many T-bills we have in our reserves. And so that is of course a big number. We are, of course, excited. We couldn't not believe that to be in this situation, but also makes you think that at some point you need a little bit of diversification. And I think our risk management over time proved to be correct in its strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, people always want to talk about audits, and it's this weird thing where you all are doing public, kind of maybe transparent view of what's in the reserves. Then there is like a CPA or an actual auditor type thing. There's also attestations. Talk a little bit about like what have you guys done in the past, and then how are you all thinking about now? Giving as much information to people who hold Tether as to where the funds are in the reserves.
Sure. So in this moment, 2023, the industry standard, the stablecoin industry standard is the attestation. Attestations are not third-party attestations. Attestations are not audits, but they are also a good instrument to evaluate the composition of the reserves of a stablecoin. That doesn't mean that the Tether is not interested to perform a full audit. Actually, in the past, we went public saying that we were working on an audit, and it's taken a long time for different reasons. So, initially, definitely adverse media didn't help. I think that in the last few years, Tether made wonderful progress in providing transparency, providing reassurance. We have seen these black swan events that almost kill our competitors, killed good parts of the crypto industry. They didn't touch Tether at all, given its good risk management and stability. Nevertheless, we are after FTX. You cannot believe how many auditors are scared about touching the crypto industry with a 10-foot pole. Some of them are not taking on new contracts for auditing. And if you look at the big four auditing firms, my understanding is that there was a public message from someone notable in the Congress that suggested that auditors should not take new crypto customers as customers. And so, to me, it's really important to express the fact that Tether wants always to improve its transparency, has done a tremendous job in doing that. It was the first stablecoin to provide the breakdown of reserves. If you look at the attestation of Tether, if you look at the notes that BDO, that is the top fifth auditor in the world, is doing these attestations. The process, the level of details that they go through for the attestation is really high, is almost comparable to an audit. And if you look at the other attestations, I mean, they are much lesser. Like, okay, yeah, we see that a couple of numbers, that's fine. So, also our BDO is interested, so is doing the attestation work, but at the same time wants to make sure that everything is proper. And so they are doing a really thorough work in the for the attestation. So I think in the future will still see Tether, and we are actually working towards an audit. And in the past, we made the mistake of giving some deadlines that we could not meet. That didn't and doesn't change our focus, our commitment. So I'm positive that our team will continue in that direction.
That makes sense. Let's talk a little bit in terms of Tether's growth and many stablecoins growth, but Tether specifically. I think people look at it and they're like, oh, I think of the asset, but there's underlying technology to this asset. And one of the stories that I think is a narrative violation is that Tether on Tron and Tether on Binance Smart Chain have become much more popular than people realize until they look at the data. And part of that, I think, is people want low cost, fast transactions, but there may be other reasons as well. And so how do you think about Tether on various blockchains and the popularity of maybe some of the blockchains that people wouldn't expect being the choice for users around the world?
Well, this topic is also pretty recent in a way, in a sense that unfortunately recently Tether had to announce the decommissioning of OmniLayer. That was the first, let's say, layer on top of Bitcoin that Tether used to issue USDT. Is a bit. I'm a bit sad because of course that was our first love and also was Bitcoin based. Nevertheless, Tether has a higher commitment to ensuring that if Tether maintains the usage of a blockchain, it is because that blockchain has a threshold of usage, right? You don't want to support 100 blockchains and have 95% of them with a couple of transactions per day or per month, because that would supporting blockchains add to the complexity of management of Tether from a technological point of view. And if there is no actual reason, there is no transfer volume and so on, it becomes more useless complexity. And so Tether started from Omni, and then added Ethereum, and then added Tron. The thing is that Tron, as you hinted, has really low, or had, especially in the past, really low transaction fees. If you go in Africa, if you go in South America, no one wants to touch Ethereum with a 10-foot pole. I mean, transaction fees that for a European person on Ethereum that are really high. But especially in emerging markets, developing countries, they're insanely high. And so, of course, now you have all these layer twos, you have Arbitrum, you have Optimism, and so on. They're trying to be more efficient. They try to take down the cost of fees. But the reality is that Tron has been super simple to integrate for many. It's basically a turnkey solution. And again, we have also always to think about the purpose. So if you want money that will resist to the wrath of God and to an apocalypse, that is Bitcoin. But Tether is issued by a centralized issuer. So blockchains are a transport layer for Tether, right? So they are a secondary market and a transport layer and so on. So in the end, even if one transport layer is more decentralized than another, it's cool, it matters, but matters till a certain extent, right? Eventually, there is still the same issuer behind all the implementations. And so people just choose, it's a commodity, right? For Tether, for USDT, a blockchain. And so people will choose the one that will make them save more money.
That makes sense. When you think about Tether and its impact in the crypto market, what would happen if Tether went away? Like, one of the things that I always think about is just whether it was regulatory kind of action, whether it was some sort of technological failure, whether it was you guys just say, hey, this was fun, we're going to shut it all down and, go home. It could be a whole bunch of different reasons. Some of them could be, decisions you guys make. Some of them could be external things. But is it something where now Tether has become almost, like it's too big to fail within the kind of Bitcoin and crypto market? Or do you think that like many things in the industry, things come and go, and if Tether for some reason was to go away tomorrow, the industry would still be okay?
Look, I think that if Tether would go away, would be, I like to think that eventually the world will move towards, and I believe in the hyper Bitcoinization. So, if the world will go towards, more and more adoption of Bitcoin, I think it's fine for Tether to decrease and to potentially, so Tether USDT to decrease and go away. There are other products like XLT or other things that we are doing, right? So we are not that the type of guys and saying, well, we have to do everything that we can to make sure that Tether will be used from here to the next 2,000 years. That doesn't make any sense for us, right? So if the world doesn't need any more stablecoin technology, that's fine. It means that the world is evolving, the world is going towards other directions. And so I think that Tether will always try to innovate and create cool stuff, communication, energy, Bitcoin mining, all kind of things. And Tether just want to be at service of the industry. If there is no need for Tether, USDT in the future, I think will be an organic decline, and I don't think Bitcoin will be affected. They probably, if that will happen when more and more people will finally understand Bitcoin.
That makes sense. Another thing that's interesting about stablecoins today is stablecoins seem to have risen in popularity, mainly because banks and large central banks or large financial institutions haven't embraced blockchain technologies. They've talked about it. There's been research. There has been maybe some experimentation, but ultimately the rise of stablecoins, and especially the profits that you all are driving internally, et cetera, is going to get the attention of these organizations. And so you mentioned earlier, PayPal is now launching kind of a dollar-backed stablecoin. You would think that other organizations are going to follow suit. And whether they actually launch a stablecoin or maybe they just become friendlier to stablecoins and kind of the crypto industry, what is the impact on the existing stablecoins? Is it something where more people being involved in whether it's competition or friendliness, then that, all boats rise together? Or do you think actually there's a world where the big banks could come in and use regulatory capture or something else to potentially get a leg up on and steal market share from whether it's Tether, USDC, or others?
So that's a great question, and in a way it's like playing 5D chess game, right? So the way I think to it is that there are different models, right? There are the CBDCs, so central bank digital currencies. There are banks, not necessarily central banks, like the super big banks in the world that could work together to create their own stable coins. I mean, in this moment, I'm hearing a lot of small banks that want to create their own stable coin. But I don't believe that is a good solution, or is a solution that will last or will be practical. Imagine that you have 50 banks that are doing their own US dollar stable coin. I mean, what is the exchange rate one-to-one? You know, which transport layer, where there will be curve pools or like whatever in order to exchange them. I mean, it's going to be from a user experience, not much from the financial side, but the user experience will be a mess, right? So in the end, people will always pivot for one or two solutions, 3, 4 solutions, but not 50, right? So then, so there is the layer of small banks that they are trying to capture the flag before the big banks are getting there, because the small banks probably can have the ability to move faster. Then the big banks could all sit together and work towards a solution that is shared, right? Because if they don't share a solution, they will fight each other in eternity, and that will not work either. Because, you know, if I'm pretty sure that every big bank would like to have dominance on a stable coin. Yet, if that is a factor that probably is in common with all the big banks, and so they will still end up in fighting each other. And so the only solution is that they sit all together, at least try to create a monopoly, and then issue a stable coin that they all recognize. That could actually work, and that could be one of the most probable outcomes. Then there is and then there is the CBDCs, so central bank digital currencies. I think that especially in the Western world, that is a little bit trickier for a government to issue a CBDC. We are seeing in the US people in Congress fight against the concept of a CBDC. There are a ton of issues, from the Orwellian future to the fact that CBDCs would replace cash, but cash doesn't pay any positive interest or negative interest. And the issue is that, of course, cash is still subject to inflation. That is, in a way, is negative interest. But nevertheless, imagine what happens if tomorrow the US would have a CBDC and they decide to put negative interest on the CBDC. I think there will be a revolt in a riot in the country. So it's really difficult from a central bank to really play this with with understanding all the variables. And what if a CBDC would be successful? Where are all the banks going? I mean, all the transactional fees of the banks will completely be wiped out, and many banks could go belly up, and a ton of people in the streets without jobs. So it's really difficult for a central bank to decide. So then we go back to big banks deciding to create a monopoly token, a stable coin. But also, I think is important that people like also the ability to move money through blockchains and jump across bridges and so on. So if these big banks would not allow this factor, then probably their product would be less used in emerging markets or in the more sophisticated tech industry and so on and so forth. So I think is fairly unpredictable. I think Tether is still in great position to keep innovating in this sector and keep moving faster than the others, especially when it comes to banks.
My last question for you is about Tether, the business itself. How big is it? Is it a distributed company? How do you guys operate the business internally? I think people are fascinated with just the scale of how quickly this has grown over 9 years, and you're coming up on the ninth year anniversary now. How do you think about it from just a pure entrepreneurship standpoint? And what does the employee size look like, and how do you manage it on a day-to-day basis?
So Tether personnel size is around 60 people now. That could make it the most profitable company per capita in the world, I guess. But nevertheless, we have been hiring a lot in the last 2 years, and we are going to keep hire in next several months, and because we are expanding the business lines, we are expanding the products. Both on the stablecoin side, we have a couple of, I think, brilliant ideas that I cannot share, but I'm super excited about them. And also we are expanding in other areas like energy production, Bitcoin mining, communication, and so on. So the size of Tether will be of the personnel will increase quite fast. Also, we are working on educational projects, cross, not related to crypto, but also we are big believers on the fact that the future, the informatization of education is one of the key points of the growth of humanity in the future, and so we are investing also on that part. So right now, you can imagine that among these 60 plus people, most of them are basically finance, right? So, but they will move. We will move away. Well, not move away. We will move towards a more diverse, or more complex organization in the next months. We have big announcements coming up.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Where can we send people to find you on the internet or learn more about Tether?
They can follow Tether at Tether_TO on Twitter, or at Paolo Ardoino on Twitter as well.
Awesome. Paolo, thank you so much for taking the time to do it. We'll definitely do it again in the future.
Thank you very much, Anthony.